What's up, everybody? Flyer Live Podcast, episode 10. We're late for the first time in 10 episodes. This is a this is a double issue, Mitch. One, your computer is very slow, and two, you wouldn't even be able to get in because I didn't send you the link to get here until 2 minutes ago. So, we made it though. So,
We're here.
we're here. Welcome. Hopefully everybody else is here too. Uh, I'm Josh or Jish. Mitch is here with me. We are normally here, Mitch, on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Central Normal Time. We're here at 8:08 Central Normal Time today, but we'll fix that
That's
going
close enough,
forward.
right?
Maybe. It is close enough. You round down, right? We always
Yeah,
round down.
absolutely.
Like if you're talking about your handicap and you're a 2.8, we'll round down to a 2, right?
Yeah,
So
it
if it's
has two in it, so
exactly. So, if it's 8 o'clock and it's 8:08, or we start at 8, it's 8:08. We started at 8, it's close enough.
right.
We'll go with
It
it.
works. Yeah.
Anyways, we're here Thursdays, 8 p.m. usually, talking amateur golf because that's the only thing that we know how to do, including we don't really know how to use computers very well. Uh, we talk amateur golf information, tips, tricks, stories, interviews. We had a great interview last week with our friend Shot Pattern. If you don't know Shot Pattern or don't use Shot Pattern, you should look into them because they are an awesome app that would be great for any amateur golfer and some pros probably use it too. So anybody out there really should use that app. We talked to them last week. That was sweet. But yeah, we talk pretty much anything amateur golf. If you're into that, follow us on X. We stream live there, or YouTube. We also stream live there. Our saved VODs are in both of those places. So follow, subscribe, do that stuff. We are hoping to just have a good community here of amateur golfers that we can just talk golf with because that's what we love and that's what we know. If you're here live at any point during the show, chat along, toss out some topics if you want, ask questions, say hello. We'll chat back along with you. We'll do all that good stuff. So, anyways, that's the intro. We're here. We made it. Mitch,
Well,
I'm going to do something today, right now, right this second, that I also did 2 weeks ago. I'm
I
de-
wish you remember
I'm
what
de-
this was, but
I'm
let's
declaring I'm declaring it officially golf season in
no.
Minnesota again.
Why? It's too early.
It's too early. What do you mean
It's
it's
way
too
too
early?
early to declare winter over.
I don't know. I
Every
hold
time you
on.
do, she
I'm
comes
gonna
back.
I'm gonna look at the phone right now. It's 60 degrees right now and it's
No,
8:15 p.m.
it is beautiful. And this time of year, I get absolutely neurotic, and I check the frost depth in my area at least twice a day, assuming that it's going to be updated, even though it only updates once a week. But I still check
We uh we got 73 degrees tomorrow as a high.
it.
That's pretty good.
It'd be awesome.
It
Oh,
this
this
is actually breaking news. Breaking news here. It was maybe potentially going to snow overnight on Friday, tomorrow night. It's just rain now.
yeah,
So
which is perfect.
we're over the hump. It's golf
Yeah,
season. I declared
that
it.
always helps us, get rid of that frost, and we really
The
we
rain is
get
great
there
actually.
faster.
The rain is great, yeah. For those
Mhm.
that live in southern states, when there's snow on the ground, we like pray for rain here because when the rain falls, it just destroys all the snow. Like the snow, like just one rainfall is all it takes, and it'll destroy like inches of snow in a night or a day.
Mhm.
So rain on Friday would
Although
be fantastic.
one year, what was it, 2019? That absolutely wrecked my basement, flooded my basement
Yeah.
because it was the year where we had a ton of snow, and then we got a ton of rain while everything was still frozen, and the rain couldn't or water couldn't go anywhere and just seep through my basement windows all
Oh,
over. Had to throw away carpet and everything. It was a fun time.
that sounds like a painful thing. I'm
Yeah.
guessing that's a lot of Minnesotans go through that every year because you really don't know Like when the snow starts melting, like tomorrow when it's going to be 70 and it snowed 9 inches the other day, when the snow starts melting, you have no clue whether it's going to drain into your basement or not until it happens.
Mhm.
Because there's so many, when it gets really, really cold over the winter and then it gets warm, then it gets cold, then it gets warm, then it gets cold. This is now a weather podcast, Mitch. When all that stuff happens here, the ground moves, like things shift around, the cold like expands or whatever, like shit just does crazy stuff. So the ground does all types of crazy stuff over the winter. So even if you have like the perfect setup home, all you need is one winter for everything to just shift around, and then you don't know if there's going to be water in your basement until water ends up in your basement. So
Exactly.
it happens to a lot of people every single year. It's a great business to get into, by the way. If you're
Yeah.
into like basement restorations or cleanup or whatever, it's a great business to get into. It'd be very busy.
It also affects putting greens. See how we're bringing this back to golf now?
Fair.
That's why you
Oh
got to get
yeah,
out
we do
and
talk
roll
about
them.
golf here. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why they got to get out there, roll them right after winter, because otherwise they get all bumpy and stuff because of all the soil shifting.
Yes. Yeah. I don't claim to know anything about that, but that does make sense to me. So
Yeah. I think I might be making that up, but it sounded really
no, that
good. So
actually that feels right to me. I think we have people that watch the show that are agronomists. Is that the right word? I think
it
agronomist.
sounds right.
That feels
Sounds right.
right, doesn't it?
I've heard the word and golf intermingled. So
I went to college, Mitch, to learn how to use a calculator. So English isn't. I like to tell people English isn't my first language. It's my second language. I don't have a first language, so I'm just not very good at English.
I like that. I'm gonna start using that now.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, so today,
Yeah.
the title of the show today, Mitch, is practice. We're
We're
getting
talking about
so
practice.
we're the we're getting into season now in Minnesota. This is different for anywhere else, but in Minnesota, we have to start talking about like actually going outside and practicing because there are people that just refuse to do anything indoors, which is fine. But now that we can go outside, the ranges are starting to open. It's going to be sort of nice out.
Mhm.
Practice is important to getting better at golf. If you don't do anything, you're not going to get better. You're probably going to get worse. Um, so your lesson today is on a specific type of practice, but we're just going to talk about practice all day today because we're getting into that season. What I'm going to put you on the spot, Mitch. If you had an hour, most people can probably spare an hour out of their day to do something golf related. Probably like
Mhm.
95% of people can probably find an extra hour. Get off your damn phone and go practice golf for an hour. I think we can do that. Most people can practice for an hour. So we're going to go with an hour. I was going to say 30 minutes, but I think an hour seems fair. If you only had 1 hour per day, Mitch, that you can practice golf, what would be your go-to place and or practice method that you would do for an hour if that's all you could do every single day? You could only pick one thing to make your game better. What would you do for an hour?
So I can only pick one thing. Like I can't break up the hour into different segments. We're just talking
Sure.
about
All right. Well, if you think you got time to break, if you got enough stuff to break it up, yeah, whatever you would do in an
okay,
hour, what would you do?
what would I do for an hour? I'd start just get warmed up. I would try to just hit some shots. Uh,
Warm up's key.
then
Yeah.
I would spend maybe 5 to 10 minutes, or let's say like 5 golf balls or so, just focusing on technique. I'd set up my camera behind me and just watch myself, make sure I'm doing my backswing right, and that's solid. Assuming that is, I will then just go in. I'll usually hit one or two different short irons, a mid iron, and a long iron. Um, and I'll definitely spend more time with my uh, mid and short irons than I will long irons, or even drivers, like honestly, I could probably hit 10 to 15 balls with a pitching wedge, 10 to 15 balls with a 8 iron or 7 iron, and then I might hit like 5 balls with a 5 iron or a 4 iron, and maybe I'll hit a 3 wood. Maybe I'll hit like 5 to 10 drivers. I don't practice that my long end of the bag a lot unless I'm specifically doing something like speed work or something that I'll work on my driver a lot more then. But I don't spend a ton of time on that. I spend a lot more time on just making good contact. Um, so I would do that. And then if I have some time to spare, I would just head over the putting chipping green area and just do some chips around the green, drop a few balls, hit some different shots, try to hit them high, hit them low, and probably call it a day. I to be honest, I probably wouldn't putt a lot. I
Yeah.
I might I might hit like 5 putts and then get bored and leave.
That leads me into my next question for you. I'm just gonna keep putting you on the spot because this is fun for me, and I don't have to answer any questions. Um, I saw at some point last week. I think it was it our friend John Sherman, possibly Practical Golf. Somebody, I think that's who it was, tweeted something along the lines of there are two important things to remember about golf that nobody remembers. One is about handicaps, and one is that putting really isn't that important for practicing, and it doesn't matter that it's that many strokes that you take or whatever, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so now in that hour, you only get to practice off the tee, approach, short game, or putting in order 1 through 4. Which one would you start with first, and what one would you end with in order of importance? But both one to you, and also what do you think overall importance are? I'm guessing they're probably the same or close, but go in
Yeah.
order 1 to 4.
So you said approach game, like off the tee.
Off the tee, approach, short game, and putting.
All okay. I would start with approach. Like I said, I would spend most of my time hitting anywhere from a pitching wedge to a probably like a 7 iron, 6 iron, somewhere in there. Kind of between like the 100 and let's call it 180 yards. That's where I would spend the majority of my time hitting from. I don't practice enough like from like 140, 150. And I think my stats with Arcos showed that like wasn't that great. So maybe I need to spend a little bit more time there. But anyway, that's where I would spend the majority of my time. And that's what I think is the most important. Uh, Next, I would probably go to off the tee only because
Good.
I'm pretty good around the greens. I think I'm fairly good with the wedge in my hand. I don't know if everyone agrees with that. You've played with me a few times.
I
I
think
think
you're
I'm
fine.
decent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't put that up as high as off the tee. But then third, I would go off the tee. Last, I would go putting. Even though I know I'm not a great putter and I could get better, but I hate practicing putting. And, and I just can't do it. I will go. I'll hit some putts, but I can't do it.
The I think the interesting about that is I think the order you put it in is the order that would work best for 97% of golfers. Be a good ball striker, be able to hit the ball on the green. Greens regulation is key. And then the next piece off the tee is actually the most important part of golf, but a lot of that requires either working out or speed training, which some people just don't have access to or don't have the time to do, which is totally fine. But so then if we're just taking that out of the equation, then it's off the tee and we're talking about trying to keep the ball more in play, which requires practice. And then the other option is the short game, which is giving yourself better slash more chances to save pars when you miss the green from approaching. So I think the off the tee and the around the green, they can be close when we're talking about just straight practicing. We're not talking about working out and speed training, because that is the key to off the tee, of course. But it's very funny because you said you'd practice putting last because it's boring and it sucks. I would also do the same. I think it's boring and it sucks. The math also says that it really doesn't matter if you're a good putter or not, as long as you relatively don't three putt. Like, it doesn't matter. So, um, for most people, the correct order is the order you put them in. It's and the tweet that I was referencing, there were so many people in there that were like, "Oh, you hit the most shots with the putter, and the putter is the club that puts the ball in the hole, so that's the one that means the most," and blah blah blah. And it's just, people really just don't understand that once you get for pro, we just talk pros. We're an amateur golf podcast. We'll talk pros for a second. Once you get outside of 7 feet 11 inches, which by the way isn't very far away, once you get outside of that for pros, it's less than 50-50 chance they're putting the ball in the hole. And then, as they get closer, obviously there's a higher percent chance. But from 8 feet to like 25 or 30 or something, which is a long distance, for pros, it's all two putts. And then when we talk about amateurs, we're gonna slide it probably closer to like 6 feet or somewhere around there. I don't know if there's official data there, but it's probably close to 6 feet, where that is the 50-50 number. And then from 6 feet again out to 20 or whatever, unless you have no idea how to put putter to ball, like for the most part, you're just two putting. So when you talk about practicing putting, okay, you can maybe get better at like 5 footers and like make more of those, but nobody hits it to 5 feet anyway, really. So most of your putts are coming from that large area where you're just going to two putt anyway because the game is so goddamn hard. That like, there is almost, I mean, you can practice a little bit, but it's way more worth your time figuring out how to strike the ball better so that you can hit it on the green every time, to just make sure that when you two putt, your two putts are for par and they're not for bogey or for double, or get a little more accurate off the tee so that you don't hit the ball out of bounds, so that when you're on the green, your two putt isn't for bogey or for double or for triple. A lot of the times you're just going to two putt again, unless you really suck at like putting putter to ball. That's a different story than practice that, obviously, but just people are you just two putt. That's what everybody does. So practicing putts that are just gonna be two putts anyway, when you only have an hour or a half hour, just honestly just makes no sense to me. And it's the most boring way to practice golf anyway. You agree? I think most people agree with that. So,
Yeah.
um,
And
yeah,
I would say as you're talking about um you're going to two putt a lot, right? And you just want to make sure they're for par, not for bogey.
right.
That's one thing I can't remember if we've touched on that at all. We've talked a lot about target selection and things like that. Um, but the best way to get better is by hitting greens in regulation, which ultimately just comes down to getting the ball in play off the tee, anywhere in play that you have a shot at the green, and then hitting the green literally anywhere. You just
Yeah.
get it on the green,
Yep.
and then two putt from there, because that means you're going to make a lot of pars and you're going to avoid doubles and triples and quads. And those are the ones that add up scores really, really fast.
Yeah. The score killers, and I don't know how many golfers actually really understand this, but the score killers are the ones that are the double bogeys and the triple bogeys, and the short par fours where it's a bogey and you can basically drive the green and stuff like that. But what makes your score bad isn't I didn't make enough birdies or I didn't make enough pars. What makes your score bad is you made too many doubles and too many triples.
Yep.
So the more you can limit that, like if you're a hundreds shooter, you're probably not a good enough ball striker to hit the ball on the green often. So the key then is making sure that you hit the ball off the tee, it might not be very good. You hit the next shot, it also might not be very good. Well, a problem comes in, and I play with a lot of golfers that are 10, 15, 20, maybe even worse handicaps. The problem there becomes they put a wedge in their hand and they aim directly at the flag and say, I need to make this now, or I need to put this really close because that's how I'm going to score good because I need to make a par. No, no, no. Just take that wedge and plop it onto the green because you know what happens is people try and go for the flag and they blade it or they chunk it because they're trying to be super precise. And now they're chipping again, or they hit it into the bunker, and now they got a bunker situation. And that's where the doubles and the triples and the quads and all that stuff comes from. It really doesn't, you can be a bad ball striker and still score pretty well, and depending on skill level. A lot of that really depends on knowing that you're probably not going to hit it perfectly, so you don't need to aim in places, and we talked about this a million times obviously, but you don't need to aim in places where it's going to put you in trouble to make the doubles and the triples and blah blah blah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
So it's a good thing they brought a target selection though, because I think we can take that back to actually practicing
yeah.
and how to practice, right? Like we need to talk about how to practice, not just what to practice. And I think what a lot of people don't do is, they're not selecting a target. Like they're not ranging a flag out there, or if then there's numbers on flags or whatever, it's 50, 100, 150 yards, whatever it happens to be. I don't think there's enough people who are aiming at that spot and trying to land it on it. And they're not really focused on a target while they practice. They're just out there hitting the ball, or they will just hit, pull a ball over, hit again. They're not really paying attention to feedback. How far, was it good contact? First of all, did the ball go directionally where you wanted it to? And how far did the ball carry? Like those are three things that you should be thinking about with every single time you hit a ball while on the range. So if you're not understanding that critical feedback, how are you ever going to improve? Like you don't know if it's good contact. You don't know where the ball went. If you just hit and rake another ball over, okay, I guess good job. You hit a lot of golf balls today, but did you get better? No, you didn't.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point of practicing. You're out there, you spent money on these balls or whatever, and you're just hitting them. That's not helping you.
Yeah, what I wish more people would really try and do and train themselves to do, and now we're getting to the practice piece, is to train yourself to understand, even on the practice range where you're using golf balls that are shit and they probably don't give you much like really good information. They'll give you decent information, but not the best information. Is to understand what the ball feels like when you hit it and then what direction or what happened to the ball. So if you shank the ball, like if you shank the ball enough, you should know what that feels like on your club, or even maybe a little bit kind of what you did with your swing to make that happen. So you need to connect a result to a feeling. That way, when you're on the course, you can fix it. So, and shanks are different because you can feel it most of the time. You can feel it hit the hosel, but if you hit a shot and your normal ball flight is just like a slight fade, and you hit a shot that's just a big pull and maybe even a pull hook, like if I do that personally, I've hit so many balls and paid so much attention to that that I know exactly what I did and I know what that felt like. So I know where it kind of hit on my club and I know what my swing probably did to make that happen. And I then the next time I can fix that. I think a lot of golfers, because they don't pay attention to their practice enough, that they'll hit a bunch left, then they'll hit a bunch right, and then they'll hit a couple really good, but they didn't think about any of what that felt like, so they don't even know what that meant. They took three swings, one went left, one went right, one went straight, and they all felt the same. And then they get to the golf course and they take three swings and they're like, well, I topped one and I smashed one and I have no clue what the difference was. Well, a lot of that is because when you practice, you just aren't paying attention. So the dog's annoyed about that too,
Yeah,
Mitch.
good. You should be.
He should be. Yeah. So it's when you're doing whatever you're doing for practice, it's paying attention to exactly like what that all that stuff felt like, so you know when you get on the golf course, you can use those feels to fix it.
Mhm. Absolutely. I you know I want to go back to one thing that you said because you talked about crappy balls versus good balls,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
and this does kind of lead into understanding different feelings in that. Um, but when I'm at a range and there's different quality golf balls, you'll see some good ones in there and you'll see some ones like, whoa, why is this one even still in there? Um,
sometimes,
like
by the side note, sometimes if they're really bad, I'll pick them up and I'll just chuck them, or I'll put them in my bag and like throw them away,
yeah,
because they're
and,
not helping anybody, by the way.
no, they're not. But what I like to do actually is like those that are a little more bald. I might just use those if I'm planning on doing some speed training. I will use those ones for that. Or I'll use those for when I'm warming up and just hitting some shots just to get warmed up and I don't care about where the ball is going. Just something for people to think about when they're practicing so that they can get good feedback. Um, is to use the crappy balls somewhere else. Don't
Right.
use them for when you're trying to hit wedges or when you're trying to you know get a better idea of your distance control. Like use those for your warm up, use them for driver speed training, use them for something else that you don't care where the ball goes.
For sure, yeah, and do that with those, and then also most range balls are not they're not built in the same way, making it very simple. They're not built in the same way that even like a pretty cheap ball is that you might buy from like Costco or whatever. Even like the Costco balls or like the cheaper like Callaway balls or whatever, they're built better than the balls you use on the range. So when you're on the range, just keep in mind that your your practice ball is like a one piece thing that just kind of has a core on it. So you don't necessarily even need to pay attention a whole lot on the range to distances and sometimes not even spins and stuff, because the way that the ball you're going to use on the golf course is built is not, in some cases isn't even close to
Mhm.
the way that the ball is built that you're actually going to play on the course, or on the range. So if you're hitting balls in the range and it's like, dang, this ball flies way different than my ball does in the course, that it could just be because you're the ball that you're using. So keep that in mind. And we do want to care a little bit on the range. Like if you're aiming at a flag and you miss it a million miles left, like that's obviously a problem. But if you're aiming at a flag and you feel like you hit a ball that should have went, like you should have made it, and it was like a yard or two left, that's probably just the ball difference. So keep in mind that that is a situation when you're practicing too. So don't put 100% stock into where exactly the ball goes, but like obviously pay attention when the ball goes way offline. Like that's obviously a problem. So, but anyway, I just wanted to note that the balls you're using on the range when you practice are not super indicative of how the ball's going to fly that you're going to use on the golf course, especially when you're doing like a warm up before a round and you go out to the range. I see this happen all the time. People hit the ball on the range, like, dang, I was flagging this thing. I hit it to 5 feet every time on the range, and now I'm on the golf course and my ball's going 10 yards longer, and it's like, well, it's probably just because the balls are different. Like, it's
Yep.
you're probably hitting the ball the same, and it's a question people always ask is like, how do I bring my range game to the golf course? Well, you're just using a completely different set of equipment basically. So
Mhm.
it's just has you have no chance to directly bring it to the golf course because one, you're not using the same ball, but also two, you're not you're not playing the same, which differential practice could help you out with a little bit.
Mhm.
You're just not playing the same, so like everything on the range is just different than what you do on the golf course, and that includes the ball you're playing. So
Mhm. Yeah, you mentioned the word differential practice,
yeah,
but so there's a few different types of practice, right?
yes,
There's block practice, there's differential practice, and there's random practice. And what you're talking about, bringing it to like bringing your range game to the course, a lot of that can come from random practice. Like
sure,
something I started incorporating a little bit last year was I would um, I would just like pick a ball or pick a number that I wanted to hit or a flag I was hitting at, take a club, hit that one shot. I just get one shot just like you would on the course and see what happens. And then I would go to another flag and try to hit that number. So I was switching up what numbers I was hitting after each shot. So one shot, you get that. Next shot is changed flag, change direction. Um, so you're kind of mimicking a little bit of what you would see on the course, where you're not hitting the same shot over and over and over. You're getting your brain. You're kind of, what am I trying to say? Training your brain and your body to be ready to adapt to a new problem to solve. And I think that's really important for anyone, really. I mean, especially as you get to be better and better. Like somebody like you, who's a scratch golfer, like going and hitting 107 irons isn't going to really help you improve at all. It might help somebody who's working on technique change or who's new to the game and they're just trying to understand the basic fundamentals. But at a certain point, block practice, while it has its place, it's no longer going to help you improve. Whereas random practice or differential practice or just flat out going and playing golf is going to help you improve more.
yeah, for sure. I think I'm a big block practice connoisseur. That is that is almost all of my practice when I'm on like the range. But I do understand also exactly what you just said in that just being on the golf course is a form of practice, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not seem like it all the time, but like you can go and be in your Tuesday night couples league and that is practice. It's an interesting thing in golf because it might not be that way with all sports where like I played basketball for a long time and you had practice and then that's where you worked on drills, you worked on form, blah blah blah, and then you went to the games where you actually did like competition and there's no like you're not really practicing. You're not practicing anything. You're using practice to compete. And in golf, and as it's the same in most sports, but in golf, you can use the actual competition part of the game where you're going out and playing golf, competing against yourself, which is a lot of what golf is, competing against yourself just in a random Tuesday night couples league, and that is also practice. You can use all that and gain feedback from everything you do, and some of those you can just take mulligans and stuff if you really want to, but you can actually use the game that you're playing in golf as practice, which is a fantastic way to obviously to get better. Whereas in other sports, it's once like basketball, for example, once you're playing and it's a tip, it's things are going so fast that it's hard to think about anything to learn later, unless you watch film, of course, but that's a whole different thing. But it's a unique thing in golf where you can actually use the game that you're playing and competing in to also be practice, which is awesome.
Well, and to build on that too, getting out and playing more, the reason why it is practice is because you're going to find yourself in situations that you cannot recreate on the range. You're going to have different lies. I mean, from the fairway to rough, maybe it's really tall grass. Maybe you're in a bunker and there's a big lip you have to get over. There's all sorts of different problems to solve when you're on the course, which kind of leads me to my tip of the week that I
Yeah,
want to
let's
talk
do it. Let's just get right
about.
into it. Here we go.
Yeah. And this is coming from the idea of, when I said maybe there's a lip in front of you that you have to get over. Understanding what differential practice is and how it can help you improve is really important when it comes to situations on the course. Because you're going to have to be able to manipulate things. You're going to have to know how to manipulate the club face, manipulate what you want the ball to do. And with differential practice, you can do some of that on the range. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can go about differential practice. Some of the most common ones are people who are having contact issues, whether it's they have a toe bias or a heel bias. Maybe they chunk the ball a lot. Maybe they blade the ball a lot, whatever it happens to be. What a lot of people are starting to recommend now is just try to do the opposite. You don't need to change your swing. Just try to do the opposite. If you're hitting it off the heel and you're shanking the ball a lot, go ahead and try to hit it off the toe. Just get some spray, like foot spray, spray it on your club, or there's like stickers you can buy, strike stickers. See where your patterns are and then just move them a little bit. It's your brain is very good at solving problems like that. If you say, hey, I want to hit this ball off the toe, and if you have a heel bias and you try to hit it off the toe, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to start striping it, because you're just going to be hitting the center of the face, because you're trying to move it towards the toe, but you're so used to hitting it off the heel that moving it that quarter of an inch back to the center of the face is going to feel like you're hitting it off the toe, but you're not. But don't stop there then. Like, keep working your way over until you're actually hitting it off the toe, and then calibrate yourself back. Now, a lot of people like to push back on this concept, and I understand why. They think, well, just go out there and hit balls, and if you're hitting them good, keep going. Well, I agree. Like, there's a time and place for that. Differential practice it's a skill builder. You're learning what it feels like to hit the ball off of different parts of the face. You're learning how to control trajectory. You're learning how to take spin off the ball. For instance, one way to do differential practice would be take your 4-iron. If you normally hit your 4-iron 200 yards, let's say, try to hit it 100 yards. Try to hit it 50 yards. Like, all of that is differential practice. But what it's teaching you is how to control your tempo, control your speed, and things of that nature. Now, I know you are a big connoisseur of block practice. You already said it. And I
Yes,
think
I
when we were
do love
talking
block
about this,
practice.
you said this might get a little controversial. But I really do believe that differential practice, it will help people improve their game a lot more than just block practice, because you're not just out there hitting a ball, you're learning a skill. Another example, I'm just kind of throwing out examples of what this could look like when
Yeah.
you're on the range, and another example could be you are purposely trying to start the ball right and turn it back left as far as you can, or vice versa. You are trying to start the ball left and turn it back right as far as you can. I've spent times on the range where I am purposely trying to duck hook it and then purposely trying to hit the super high launching spinny fade that goes 75 yards right. Because what it's helping me accomplish is knowing where I'm striking the ball and what I'm doing with my hands to control the face and the contact and what's happening there. And as we take that knowledge that we've built through those adjustments and through that practice to the course, on the course, you're just typically trying to hit the ball straight, right? But nobody ever hits the ball straight.
Right,
Like, you're
correct.
you're gonna hit the ball right, you're gonna hit the ball left. Yeah, some are gonna go straight, but you're gonna have some sort of pattern. And understanding through differential practice how to control your ball flight through hitting big hooks, through hitting it right, through moving a heel bias to a toe bias, it gives you the skill on the course to make corrections on the fly. If you're missing them all left one day, maybe like, okay, I need to hold the face open. But if you've never practiced holding the face open, you don't know what that feels like.
Mhm.
So practicing that type of shot, it gives you the ability to adjust quickly on the fly on the course. And that's personally why I love practicing that way. And it's way more fun than just going and hitting a bunch of shots. Way more fun to hit hooks and slices.
Yes, that is that was gonna be my main point. And I actually when we talking about practice today, I specifically wrote down that I wanted to note that practice is boring as shit, and and that's the case in every sport really. Like nobody really likes to practice, especially if you've been playing something for a really long time. And the word practice just has a like stale, boring feeling to it. Just the word, like when you say practice, it's like, ugh. Nobody says practice, and we're like, hell yeah, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, the big thing with practice is making it enjoyable. And what differential practice does, and all the stuff you mentioned, is can definitely make hitting golf balls more fun in a way that you can still learn. And you can actually mix in block practice and differential practice pretty easily. And you can literally just use block practice while you're like doing differential. Like you can just spend a whole bunch of time just hitting a bunch of like massive fades, and that's a form of block practice. But yeah, the fun part about the differential practice is you can work so many more games into it where it's yeah, I'm gonna try and hook this thing, and I want to hook it. There's a flag out there that's at 150 yards, and I want to. It's right in front of me, but I want to make sure that I start it way left of it, and I want it to finish way right of it, and then now you have a goal or a concept of something that you're trying to do versus in a lot of block practice where you're just hitting balls, and then of course, like we said at the beginning, you're always learning and paying attention to everything you do. So in block practice, every swing you take, you're paying attention to what you do so you can do it better the next time. But same thing, you're paying attention to what it feels like to rip it left and turn it right, and then the next one maybe I want to do it more or I want to do it less, and it's the and then you can build games out of it, and if you're there with a buddy by chance, you can have a competition and say whoever can bend it more around the flag gets a buck or something. Just
Mm-hmm.
you can score points and do all that. You can do all kinds of things with that type of practice to make it at least a little more enjoyable, a little more fun versus block practice, which is legitimately just like the nails on the chalkboard practice, where you're just going out there and I hit ball, I see ball, I felt ball, I know exactly what happened. I have an idea of how to do that a little bit better. Bang, and do that again, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again, which is a great way to practice in terms of teaching yourself the swing that you want to hit, but then also, the differential practice that you mentioned is important as well because you're going to be behind a tree sometime. You need to know how to get around that tree. You're going to have a ball way above your feet at some point, and you need to know how to like rip it way inside, and so you can kind of not dig the club into the ground or all types of things. You have to have those types of skills too. And so being able to do that and then obviously making that a little more fun is good. So
Yeah.
no,
I would say,
nobody's gonna block practice forever because it's not fun. So I think working both of them, and I do love block practice, but I also do the stuff that you mentioned because one, that's a way to make it more fun, and two, like you said, there you just run into so many different things on the golf course that it's like you're just never gonna be on a flat ground hitting to a flat green with a pin in the middle of the middle of the green. Like it just never happens. So
right, exactly. And that's where, throwing in those games and that different type of practice other than just going and hitting ball, raking ball, it gets to be a lot more fun. Like I've spent time on the range where I am just trying to hit the biggest flop shot I can. I'm talking 60-degree
yeah,
wide open face,
yeah,
like getting super low. Or even another challenge would be like get like an 8-iron and try to do it.
yeah.
But
I
I'll take my 60-degree, lay it flat, wide open, just try to hit the biggest flop I can. And then after that, I will like put it as far back in my stance as I can and try to pinch it as low as I can and just see how low I can keep a 60.
Yeah, I actually do that. I have implemented that this past summer. I implemented that into my practice because I was starting to get a little bored. Quite honestly, I implemented exactly that into my practice where at the end I would save 10, 15, 20 balls or so, grab a 60 degree or whatever wedge I was working on because I was usually working on wedges over this past summer. Whatever wedge I'm working on in the last however many, I have a flag in front of me depending on where I'm at the range. I have a flag in front of me that's however many yards. So now what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to see if I can hit two or three onto the green that are like big high flops that are just like nasty disgusting flops, and then I'm going to hit a few that are super low, like they bounce like seven times before they get to the green and then they kind of get up there and stop. And then I'm going to hit like actual shots I would just normally hit. I'll hit a few of those and then I go back to the flop and go back to the low one and just do that with the last 10. One, because it's more fun and I'm at the end of the bag or end of the round and I'm already tired, so and getting bored. So one, it's fun, and two, also, if I get to the course again and I'm like super short sighted and I need to get the ball like super up in the air, now I have actually done that. So it's it's a feeling that you get used to and also fun. And so I started implementing that in my practice and it's made me better. I think I've actually used a lot of that stuff on the golf course where you get short sighted or you're on a par five and you smash it up there, but you end up kind of like sort of underneath a tree, but you're too close to like use a 5 iron to just punch it. You have to get a little loft, but you have to use like a wedge, and so you kind of got to like get it up in the air. Well, I practiced that because I was doing it on the range at the end of a range session just for fun. I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing for everybody to do. Even if you're doing block practice like I usually do, like do that at the end, just one because it's fun and two because it's good.
Yeah, exactly. I have had to use those types of shots in competition before, and it's a really important skill to have. I remember one. It was the all city tournament here. It was a par four, short par four, but there's a creek in front of the green, so you can't hit driver because it will go in the water. I think the water is like 280 to the front, and then like 310 to carry. Like it's a long carry. Like you might be able to hit driver, but it's pushing it. But anyway, so I hit a hybrid and I pulled it a little bit, and I had a shot at the green. I wasn't directly behind a tree, but there was a low hanging branch about 15 yards in front of me, and I was like 60, 70 yards from the green. Like, and it was hanging low enough where a wedge was not in play. I couldn't go above it. Like the option was to go below it, but a wedge was going to have too high of a launch and it was going to hit that tree branch. And I had to hit an 8 iron from like 70, 80 yards out, whatever I said it was. And I ended up hitting on the green to like 15 feet, missed the putt, but made par. But if I hadn't been doing that type of practice, I would never have known how to hit an 8 iron that distance.
Right.
Just like judging on the fly, like, okay, I usually hit an 8 iron about this far. If I take it up to, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever you want to say it was, and hit it, it's going to go about the distance I need it to. And I was able to execute the shot. But it comes from that type of practice.
Yeah. A lot of people love to complain about the pro game and that there's no creativity in the program with the pro game, which I 100% disagree. It's wildly more creative now than it's ever been, but people are like, "Oh, long ball, hit wedge, putt, whatever." But it brings that type of practice brings a lot more creativity back and also gives you a lot more options to, again, going back to what we talked about at the very beginning, being able to save pars or save bogeys depending on your skill level, being able to save your scores from not being doubles like I have a one of my favorite stories from something I practice on the range is I teed off on a hole, and it's fairway is like super narrow in front of you. It's way out of like right is just dead, and left is like big water. I pulled out like an iron, and I just duck hooked it. It's the first tee. Duck hook it, hit it into the trees. It like rattles under the trees, kicks backwards. So I'm like directly behind this lake, and now the dogs are super annoyed about this. I'm directly behind these trees, and there's a lake right in front of me, and then it's the green. So I look at my buddy, and I look down at the ball, and the ball is kind of on like a downslope, and there's the trees are obviously right here. So I'm like, a normal person would probably have to like chip it out, and then you chip it out, and you're also dealing with the water, so you could probably hit in the water again. Like double, triple, quad is well into play based on where my ball's sitting. I looked at the ball, it's on a downslope. I looked at my buddy, and I'm like, I'm gonna try and like clip this thing, like punch it, and I'm just gonna try and skim it across the water because I think it's gonna have enough like speed and carry where it can just kind of skim, and then it'll like kind of get up and go over the grass, and it'll kind of get up by the green. He laughed at me. He's like, "Dude, you're just gonna hit it in the water. That's crazy." And I had practiced the like punch shots on the like I think I pulled out a 5 or a 4 iron. I had practiced these punch shots for a long time where I knew I could really flight the ball like super low and spinny. I could do this like without a doubt, no problem. It was going to be super easy. And then the downslope that I was sitting on, I was like, this thing's going to come out, but I know the angle it's coming out and it's going to hit the water first. But I knew because like the spin and like the math, like it's going to hit the water, but it's not going to stay in the water because physics. So I was like, dude, I could just chip it out, but like if I chip it out, I'm looking at probably double or triple. It could be worse. Who knows? So I'm just gonna try and skim this thing across the water and see what happens. Because if I hit it in the water, I might have hit it in the water on the next shot anyway. So then I just drop it and whatever. Then I am gonna get double. But so that was my shot. So I take the 4 iron and I hit this low spinner. It takes 2 skips off the water and runs up onto the green. And I'm like,
Told you.
I practiced it so much that I just knew how to do it. I had seen it, I had visualized it, and obviously you have to hit it good. If you don't hit it good, then it doesn't matter. But I practiced it so much that that was the shot that was able to save me a par on that hole because I had been practicing it on the range. Whereas if I looked at that ball and I'm like, I don't know, then I have to chip it out somewhere. And do I make par on that hole? Probably not. So it brings creativity back. It makes it more fun. It can definitely save you more shots. All that good stuff. So
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, as we think about wrapping this up,
yeah,
what do you think are the most important takeaways that somebody listening to this should have?
I have one. I have one takeaway. It's the first thing I wrote down when we were talking about giving people ideas for practice. And the only one I have is making practice fun. Whatever you have to do, whatever that means to you to make it fun or make it interesting, you can do a lot of things practicing golf. It doesn't have to be just banging balls in the range. You could, if you got kids, you can go in the basement and put a little cup down and hit putts at the cup. Like that can, if you pay attention, you can feel when you're hitting putts at just a random cup in the basement with your 5 year old. You can feel how the putter feels against the ball. That can give you good feedback on putting. But you can do that. You can hit balls into a screen with a launch monitor. You can go outside and do, if you like to just bang balls all the time, block practice is fine. If differential practice, like we talked, do that. Play games against other people. Invite people to the putting green and play games on the putting green. If you really need to, which a lot of people do to be interested in golf, put money on the line for things. Do all types of stuff to practice, which by the way includes going out to the course and playing. That is practice. whatever it is that you're going to do something to make it fun, because if it's not fun, you're going to stop doing it. And if you stop doing it, you're going to get worse. And then you're going to not like golf and you're going to stop playing. So, my only takeaway of all of this, and we've said it a million times with everything, is do whatever it is you're going to do, figure out a way to make it interesting and make it fun so you want to do it again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Because if you don't, then you're just going to stop doing it and you're going to be bad. So my takeaway is make it fun.
I like that. I think that's a great place to end. Make golf fun. Make
Yes.
practice fun.
Yes.
And if you don't find it fun and you want to quit, that's okay. We support you quitting.
Well, it depends who you are.
Yeah, not everybody, certain people.
There's a large group of people that may or may not have started playing golf during COVID that we would be okay that stop playing golf forever.
Yeah.
Anyways,
yeah, that was a great conversation.
yeah,
I think honestly we could probably break it out into 7 different podcasts about practice and just different ways to go about it.
maybe we will.
Yeah, maybe we will. There's no reason to not revisit it. We'll get Adam Young on here and he can come talk to us about all sorts of different ways to practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Anyway, with that, I'll do my part here.
Yes.
I'm going to let you call me out on it.
Yes.
Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do all that. Give us a follow on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it these days. We appreciate it. We appreciate everyone who's listening. We're just here trying to build a community of amateur golfers like ourselves, and have fun. That's
yes,
it.
have fun. And also, if you're a competitive golfer and you are a competitive golfer like us two, who have very busy lives, we can't just sign up for random 1-day golf tournaments. There is in the cities a tour called the Land of Lakes Golf Tour. It's not a 1-day event tour. It's a 2-week event tour. So you sign up for the tour, you get 2 weeks to play your tournament round. It's set up the same as like the PGA Tour, where they do the FedEx Cup points, and you accrue points throughout the year. You can win prizes and cash for single events. You win prizes and cash for the year-end stuff. It's a great option for competitive golfers like us that want to compete and have fun, but also can't do that just on like single day events. Land of Lakes Golf Tour. We have early bird pricing going on right now. So if you're in Minnesota, take advantage of that. The discount code is Loon, our state bird. So use that discount code, gets you $150 off, which is a sweet deal. It's, I think, of the 6 or 7 tours that are out there under this umbrella, I think that is the largest discount code. So lucky us. So do that and get signed up and come play some competitive golf with us over the summer. With that being said, we can get out of here, and we'll be back next Thursday, hopefully 8 p.m. Central Normal Time. Maybe we'll be a little late, maybe we'll be a little early. Who knows?
Yeah.
We're just amateur podcasters doing amateur golf things. So we'll